Welcome everybody to day 3 of our Top 1 Performers program. Today we are gonna continue our week 1 top habit around self-leadership and the foundations of leading others. We're gonna start to get into the M part of the BMAP equation that was constructed by BJ Fogg via Tiny Habits. That was a resource I recommended that you check out earlier in the program. And we're going to divide motivation into 2 parts. And those 2 parts are what I call transient motivation and sustained or sustainable motivation. And transient motivation is all about like quick bursts of motivation and like how you can hack yourself to do that. I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time here. My personal opinion is this form of motivation can be fleeting, and I'll talk about a little bit about that in just a moment. And then there's also sustained motivation. So what can you really count on that is like really authentic and true to yourself, that can drive you, that really motivates you and increases the probability of you taking the action that drives the behavior and the outcome that you're ultimately looking for. Now, part of the thing that makes motivation sexy is its association with inspiration, so inspiring others, and the concept and definition of a transformational leader. So someone that's trailblazing, somebody that people just naturally follow, that this person might have a gravitas. Whether or not they actually deliver significant outcomes is not necessarily correlated to being a transformational leader. And the key with motivation is you can't necessarily always count on the motivation coming from the outside. It's how do you drive that transient and sustained motivation from yourself. And this is a reason why it can be a trap. And you see Admiral Akbar from Star Wars on the bottom left. I am a bit of a Star Wars geek. I will freely admit that, maybe not to the degree that some other folks are, but I think Admiral Akbar here, that scene where the Empire comes in unexpectedly and they realize it's a trap, strictly focusing on motivation, especially outside motivation, can almost feel like a drug. It can feel like addicting. So you see that thing on social media, wow, that really inspires me, that motivates me. That can be fleeting. And when we rely on those external factors for our motivation, it's not a very productive use of cultivating motivation. And when we look at the formula again, what creates the behaviors, motivation is a key element to make that happen. And how do we utilize motivation to get those key results? So let's dive into transient motivation first. This is our topic for day 3 today and part 1 of motivation. It's really about kind of hacking into your emotional state and you changing it for the better in the near term, enabling you to do something in that near term that maybe is situational, and then it's maybe an internal or an external factor that you have reduced motivation. This could be the result of some kind of anxiety. Let's say you have to do public speaking and you're not comfortable doing that, or you have a client meeting and you don't feel prepared. These kinds of hacks can help you to do things like change nervousness into excitement, or to put you in a happier or more contented state temporarily, just to get you over that hump of maybe an emotional state that reduces the quality of your time Now, some of these quick bursts of change in positive emotional state can be cumulative when they become a habit. And meditation is one of those things. If you've ever practiced meditation, usually the joke is the first time you do it, it's the best time that the best experience that you have with it in terms of the results. But what studies show is the more people meditate, they achieve a certain equilibrium in their state consistently. So this is a meditation, in my opinion, is a kind of hack of our emotional state, but it is cumulative over time. I'll quickly walk you through this heaven and hell concept, which is essentially a play on the humans are basically motivated by pain or pleasure. And there's some disagreement on that. So again, I view this as a hack. And then things around body language and mantras and visualization. I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on most of these because these types of resources are readily available, and I do apply them to create these hacks in emotional state. But in part 2 tomorrow, I'm going to focus more on the sustainable things and the things that I prefer to tap into to increase the motivation and ultimately increase the probability that I'm going to do a behavior that is going to help me to achieve my desired outcome and the value creation that I want to have. All right, so heaven and hell, maybe it's more appropriately designated as hell and heaven. So you can equate hell to what's the pain you're going to go through versus heaven, what is the pleasure you're going to derive from the experience or the outcome of the experience. And I will put this framework into the worksheet so you can copy it and paste it and use it. I won't walk through each of the steps here, but essentially it's a series of questions to define like what's going to be the pain if you don't make the change. So as an example, what if you don't figure out the problem that you're trying to solve? How is that going to impact you? You might lose money. You might create more stress with your family. You might lose a client opportunity. You may be less likely to get that promotion. So this pain that you're tapping into, whether it's perceived, real, or not, is used as a hack to motivate us to do a desired behavior. So go back to the worksheet if you want to practice this exercise and run through a situation. There's also an opportunity to do that through the accountability form at the end. Let's explore heaven. So heaven's a little bit of the opposite. So what's the pleasure that we're going to get by making a change? So maybe I will be able to, in 10 years, if I do this, I can buy that beach house that I always dreamed of having. Or maybe it's something more immediate. Like I'm going to feel very satisfied and content with this accomplishment, or I'm going to get some recognition that I seek by people in authority or people that are kind of like gatekeepers for my career. So these types of questions help to elicit our emotions and responses to pain and pleasure or hell and heaven. So you can keep this framework in your mind when you're seeking a level of motivation in the moment, just to get you over some kind of near-term challenge. And here's an example of like a hell and heaven experience or use of the framework that I had previously done. So looking at a question like, what if I don't figure this out? So I want to realize the dreams I have for my family. I always have a huge what if in my life. So for me, that equates to like some kind of regret, whether I failed or I succeeded. I just don't know what would have happened. And then that can create doubt in other areas of my life, not just professionally, but also personally, which for me can be a very challenging factor. And then I went through each one of these questions to gain a further understanding of what like a more detailed description of my pain might be and the longer term outcomes of it. And I also applied this on the like heaven side, so the pleasure side, so something around what hassles am I free from now? Frequently feeling stagnation, hopelessness, and frustration and anger, not getting the right kind of work, not getting the recognition I'm worthy of, that I would see in terms of comp improvements and promotions and additional leadership opportunities. So these are the things that I would be free from that weigh heavily on my mind. And I can tap into these things to help motivate me in a certain circumstance. So what are the other ways to hack like near-term motivation, that transient motivation? There's a whole TED talk on this from, I believe, the doctor or the scientist that did a study on this, the power pose, essentially like the Wonder Woman pose where you put your hands on your hips and you just stand there in like 2 minutes, it changes your brain chemistry and has an impact on your motivation and your emotional state. I've used this before. And for me, it felt very weird keeping my hands on my hips, just like awkward, but over time, I overcame that. And I do have to say, it did change my emotional state. So if that's a potential quick hack to raise the motivation and help to drive you towards the behaviors that you're looking to seek. Another type of hack is like putting your shoulders back and your chest up. And then usually this is accompanied by some kind of mantra or something that you repeat to yourself that has some kind of centering or impact. There's some forms of meditation use this. This is a big thing that like Tony Robbins likes to do. Some people love him, some people not so much. But he derived this technique from other people like Jose Silva, who worked on kind of like self-hypnosis and optimizing emotional states. So in this example, put your shoulders and your shoulders back and your chest out and saying something like, every day in every way, I'm getting better, better, and better, and repeating that. And doing this kind of thing, it sounds silly sometimes, but it actually works. And if you immediately take the action after you do this, it'll kind of get you through a challenging circumstance to a certain degree. And another kind of mantra that is used is something like, all I need is within me now, again, with your shoulders back and your chest out. All right, so visualization. This is like a combination of meditation and manifestation. So essentially, what is the outcome that you want, and in your mind, experiencing it as if you've already achieved it. And one method of doing that is expressing gratitude for as if you've already achieved it. So if there is a certain type of leadership responsibility you're seeking, or let's say I'm seeking in my mind, I would picture that leadership opportunity, and I would, in my mind, or even verbally, if I'm walking or exercises, might say something like, I'm thankful for this leadership opportunity. I'm thankful for the way that it changes my life. And again, this hacks your brain to change your emotional state, to give you a bit of an emotional high, for a lack of a better word. It's to make sure that you're increasing the quality of the time that you have available to you. All right, so action items for today, and the form helps to facilitate the first thing is just choosing a transient motivational technique and we want to rehearse it, and the form will help you to rehearse it. Just a couple of quick steps to identify how you would apply that technique and what it would look like maybe to turn it into a habit and then to rehearse it. So you don't have to use the transient techniques that I have shared with you. You can choose another one. But again, the point here is about creating the habit in the specific areas that we're talking about so that you can increase the probability of doing the behavior that leads you to the aspirations and the goals that you or others have set. So we will cover sustainable motivation tomorrow. And with that, please look in the worksheet for the links to the accountability and any additional resources. And I will see you tomorrow for day 4 of week 1.